So today is the 31st of August 2022. So in training the mind to come to peace, we need to have effort to keep our mindfulness in the present moment. And when we are very mindful of this present moment, and we do that a lot, when we're very mindful of this present moment, and we do that a lot, then samadhi will become firmly established, and joy, happiness arises within the heart. So if we can train our samadhi so that it gets good, when we sit in meditation, walk in meditation, it will be in a state of khanika samadhi, or this momentary collectedness. However, when the mind leaves that state, we stop meditating, and then it receives all of these sensory impressions all over again. And it doesn't have enough energy, so it becomes entangled with those and stirred up by them. Then we sit in meditation again, some wisdom arises. Even though it's just a little bit, we still feel like the mind has become lighter, less burdened. And if we can carry on doing that and do that consistently, then the mind will gather together more into samadhi, and the khanika samadhi will develop into upajjhara samadhi, or this neighborhood collectedness. And then when we leave that state, then there's still some peace there within the mind. And we can recollect that state of peace, bring up our meditation, words, objects, and this peace comes up again. And here we have enough energy to be able to struggle and fight with all of these sense experiences, all these mind objects, all of those which enter into the mind. If we don't train our hearts, however, then everything that comes up will just be an issue of self. It will be about me and mine. All of the things that have passed already, then we take those as being a me that was there in the past. And the memories of those events arise again, and then we understand all of those memories as being me, that it was me back then. The things that I did, the things that I spoke, the things that I have thought about. That we recollect all of these experiences in the past and take all of them as being me. All of the things that make us happy, all the things that make us sad. So if it is a memory that was a happy one, something we experienced in the past that we liked, then when we recollect that, we feel at ease. But if it was something that we dislike, something that we suffered over in the past, then when we recollect that, then we suffer all over again in this present moment. It comes up as a Dhamma aramana, these sense experiences that comes up in the mind itself. And we take that as being me in the past, and then there's this attachment in the present moment as well. So there's a me in this present moment. So when there is physicality, when there's mentality, there's these mind objects arising, memories of things that happened in the past, and these come up anew. And then proliferation arises and takes those as being me, a me that was there in the past. But these things that happened in the past, we're not able to fix them because they've passed already. If we attach to them, we attach to them as being me and mine, but we're not able to rectify those things. So the Buddha taught us to contemplate and reflect how we shouldn't bring up or think about things that have passed with grief. So if there's a sense of dislike there, then that is grief. Grief about things that are past already. So we need to try to cut those off. So when we have samadhi, and there's a sense object that arises, a mind object that comes up that we don't like, then we try to put that down. Because really, it's not me, it's not mine, it's just a mind object. So we need to separate the mind out from its objects. And just like if there's water that's mixed in with a dye, then we need to separate those things out. And when we can take the colour out, then the water becomes clean again. So if it's rainwater or well water, and it's very discoloured in some way, but we pass that through a filter, then that colour leaves, and the water becomes clean and pure again. We can drink it, we can use it. So the mind is like this clean water. And when these mind objects arise, when we see a sight or hear a sound, or there's touch or taste or smell, or there are these objects that arise within the heart, like memories, for instance, then these can make the mind become sad and gloomy. And they can be very deeply embedded within the mind, and the mind suffers. And we don't like that. We don't want for these things to come up. We don't want to have these memories. But that's vibhava tanha, this craving not to be, not to have. We don't want to remember these things. We don't want to cognize them. We don't want to experience them, the things that we suffered over in the past. And it's like this for all people. All people have this. So we need to train ourselves to have mindfulness well established in the present moment. And when these mind objects arise, then we know them in time for what they are, simply a mind object, not a being, not an individual, not me, not you. And that knowing as well is just knowing. That too is not a being, an individual, a me, or a you either. So we don't attach to that either. But if there's a lack of mindfulness, then samadhi is not well established, and wisdom simply won't arise. Then this vibhava tanha comes up. We don't want to be like this. We don't want to experience this. And these things, they can overpower our minds and make them, or bring them into suffering. Things that had passed by many, many years ago, a long time ago, that we suffered over all that long time ago. But when we recollect those again, then we suffer over them all over again. So we need to try to have effort. We need to try to put these things down, abandon all unskillful states, all agitating states. And when we attach to these things, then that is unskillful. So these mental impressions, they're really not anything at all. They're just that, just mental impressions. But through our attachments, then we cling on to those. And that creates heat in the heart, taking these things as being me and mine. But when we can see this for what it is, then we're able to abandon it, to put it down, and the mind can separate out from the objects. But if we don't train our minds at all, then they just simply won't have the energy to be able to do that, to be able to put up a struggle against these objects. And even though we may be practitioners, sometimes these emotions can arise with great strength, with an abnormal power to them. And they can really shake up the mind. And there's no peace there, it's all chaotic and confused. So we need to put in our efforts and try, really practice, really put up a fight with these sense experiences that the mind attaches to. And if the mind doesn't have wisdom, it'll just cling on to all of these, that they're all me, they're all mine. It's all about us and them. So it's like that with the body as well. We take all the bones in this body to be me, the skin is me, every part of the body we take as being me. But if we separate them out, then what's that like? Well, there's nothing. It's just a heap of earth, water, fire, and air. So we need to teach our minds, ask ourselves, well, where is this me? The me that was there in the past, where is that? This me, the self in the present moment, where am I now? And if we can see that in the present moment, this is not self, and we can also see that in the past there's no self there, in the future there's no self there either. But taking these things as being me, when these memories come up, then we take those as being me, because there's a me here in the present moment, so therefore there was a me in the past, and there will be a me in the future as well. So we contemplate them to see how they're not self. There's not self in the past, not self in the future either. So when the marga, this noble path, has energy, then it will be able to win out against greed, hatred, and delusion. So it's like there's the struggle going on, a fight going on. If the marga, this noble path, has energy, then it will be able to destroy the defilements. But if the defilements have more energy, then they will win out over the path. So it's like there's a war that's happening. And if the defilements are winning, then that causes us to suffer. So all of the acts that we have done, the acts of generosity and virtuous acts, and those of cultivating the mind, that these bring up a sense of vitality to the heart. They give us energy. Because we see how even though we may have a lot of wealth, we may have a house and a car and everything externally complete, but those are just merely external things. We do need to use them, because if we don't have those physical possessions, then our lives will be difficult. And when we gain them, then that reduces the suffering that we experience to some degree. But really the suffering is within our hearts. And these material things, they can't make that suffering disappear. If they could, then the Buddha wouldn't have sought for a way out of suffering. But it was because the Buddha saw how our external wealth is something that doesn't last long. It's just temporary. We need to be separated from them, and that's why he sought this path out. So we have faith in the Buddha, and the Buddha taught us to abandon all evil or unskillful things, to give rise to skillfulness and to make the mind pure. So we really try to do this. We offer food to the monks, we are generous, and we keep our virtue. The monks as well keep virtue and develop samadhi and wisdom. And this is the way that will bring brightness and vitality to the heart. So those people who are generous and virtuous and who meditate, then they are important. These are important things to do. And they can bring us to seeing the reality of all physical and mental things. And when we see that, then there's a great vitality that comes up. There's joy arising in the heart, and this overflows. And so if we see, for example, the body as being something unattractive, then there can be great joy that arises, a happiness that comes up through seeing the truth. So we should contemplate this, contemplate the elements, separating out the elements and the khandhas. And because this is the way that will lead us to freedom from suffering, will take us to seeing the Dhamma. When we see the Dhamma, then we see the Buddha. And it's really incredible. Initially, however, we need to forbear. Even though it's hard, it has happiness. This practice has happiness as its results. But the things of this world, they give us happiness now, but they have suffering as their result. When the wealth that we gain disappears, then we gain suffering from that. When we gain these things, then we worry about them, we cling to them. That's the cause for suffering that's coming up. And this makes our mind fall lower and lower. So the Buddha said that we should train ourselves in recollecting the good things that we have done. We see that there are many people in this world who get into accidents. And if they don't have mindfulness well established, then when there's an accident like this, then the mind can leave the body. And if the body dies at that point, then they'll go to a bad place. But if we have trained ourselves well, then when one of these severe accidents happens, then the mind will just gather together into samadhi. So we see that the Dhamma protects those who practice the Dhamma. And when this happens, when there's, say, a sudden accident like this, then we don't have to tell ourselves to spread metta at that point. There's not enough time to do that. But the mind will just gather together all by itself. And there will be metta, this loving kindness there, right there within it. So whenever there's a danger, the mind gathers together immediately. It knows that there's something strange that's going on, something abnormal, and it comes together. So Venerable Ajahn Chah once told us about when he was traveling from England to America, and he stopped off in Japan. And on the flight there, then the landing gear on the aeroplane was malfunctioning and it wouldn't go down. So Ajahn Chah, he gathered his mind together and used the power of his mind and the strength of his loving kindness. And that was able to fix this problem. And the plane kind of landed safely. But when he told us about this, he told it in kind of a very funny way. He said that when there was a problem that came up, then the passengers on the plane, they came to him and they raised their hands in respect and asked for him to help. But when that problem disappeared, when it was over, then all the people, they went up to the air hostesses and raised their hands and thanked them. They didn't thank the monk. They had forgotten about the monk already. So when we train ourselves in mindfulness already, then this gives us happiness. This is its result. So we should practice following this, and this gives us great benefit. And really the highest benefit that it gives us is knowing the Dhamma, awakening to the Dhamma, seeing the Dhamma, attaining the Dhamma. So whenever a memory comes up within our mind, we tell ourselves that this is something that's not sure, this is something that changes, this isn't me. all the things that we have spoken, done, thought about, they're not me, they're not mine. All of the ignorance and the craving and the clinging in the past, that has arisen already and ceased already. All of these feelings of pain in the past, they've come and they've gone. We're not able to keep any of these things. The memories that come up, the sanya, and we know them for what they are when they happen, that they're not me. If we can see that clearly, then we see the Dhamma. So to free ourselves from stress and suffering, then we follow this way. We develop mindfulness, we make our samadhi firmly established, and then we contemplate so that wisdom arises. And so may all of you set your hearts on this path.